Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl. So in this episode, obviously that rain situation was finished a lot quicker than I thought it would be. Interesting enough, too, because I was so certain, which also, side note, like, man, they are killing it with that cape thing. I love that that's kind of like, because, I mean, it's part of her tactics. I hope that means we get to see that more so in the future, her kind of adding that into kind of her combat. But she's definitely been using an like, building upon that a lot more, like especially when her and like Mon-El work together against an enemy, like, so it's just nice seeing that that's kind of become like part of her fighting style now too, which is pretty neat. But nevertheless, like the moment they were splitting up, I was like, oh, is this turning into what I thought it was? Are we going to set the beast? It's like, oh no. It seems like Rain is quote unquote dead. I was like, oh wow. And then immediately we're moving to like, oh yeah, Kara's leaving. I'm like, wow. I really felt like that was going to be the thing, but I thought that might be like an end of the season thing. Wasn't expecting immediately. Well, it's like, well, Rain's been taken care of. The world killers are all gone. So it's like, for her, it's like, well, she's done. I mean, the fact of the matter is she feels a little bad about it because like I'm leaving everything behind. You know, she feels a little selfish, but at the same time, it's like you've sacrificed so much for Earth. You should actually, you know, be, you know, a little selfish for yourself. Take care of yourself for once, you know. So send-off party as both Kara, which I'm wondering what the explanation was for that. I guess it's just kind of like, oh, maybe she was going on to like, yeah, I'm probably leaving, you know, town for a while. I don't know if I'm gonna go. Maybe that's the excuse, because obviously because Lena was at the party and everything, so it's kind of like, which is weird, she's getting a double party, but obviously it's like, oh, she's got the exit as Kara with all the people who only know her as Kara, and obviously people who, at the DEO who know her as Kara and Supergirl. So it's weird. She's walked around as Kara, right? Could it be kind of funny? Because I was like, do people know about her person, like her secret identity and everything, right? It's like, yeah, she's been Kara in the DEO before. It's something weird I don't think I ever thought about before, which is stupid. It's just, I don't know why. It just never crossed my mind to think about that. It'd be kind of funny that they only knew one side of her, just like everyone in her life, and Kara only knew one side of her. But nevertheless, obviously there were a lot more for me with her as Supergirl rather than just Kara. But it's one and the same, so it's not really that big of a deal. Nevertheless, the whole point I'm trying to get across is the fact is, it's just kind of interesting, like immediately jumping to that. What also surprised me is the fact they said she brought Mon-El along too. Mon-El was kind of like, oh, maybe use some like anti-gravity stuff up there to basically send a signal to the future to let them know, like, oh, like Mon-El's ready to get picked up. Because like, oh, no reason to stick around. But she was like, no, like she'd like Mon-El to come with her. So he gladly accepts and they go. Obviously, being there is kind of hard. At first, she's enjoying it because it's like, oh, I don't have any powers. I don't have to worry about responsibilities and stuff like that, because she, you know, on Earth, with those powers came the responsibility of protecting people. And it's like that, not really burden, but that calling is no longer on her anymore. It's just kind of, here she's in her, like a home, like her home, you know, again, and it, you know, feels good. But obviously, like the side of her being Supergirl kind of kicks in, like every like little problems here and there, like an accident with construction site happens. It's like, whoa, what was that? It's like, oh, nothing happened. It's like, oh, you're just being kind of paranoid. You know, it's kind of what everyone kind of tells her. I was like, I thought that was going to play up a bigger role in the episode. I thought the whole point was to kind of make her look more and more paranoid, which it kind of did. But I thought it was like, I'll make her seem more and more paranoid to the point no one believes her while all the secret stuff is happening. It's like, no, when it all is said and done, people believe her because it turns out to be, there is like a conspiracy happening. Interestingly enough, the person who played her friend Thara, isn't that the same actress who plays Jane on The Magicians? She plays something else too, and it bothers me because I remember finding out, like, when I was like, I looked her up and I was like, oh yeah, I know her from something else, and I don't remember what it is. I'm pretty sure that's the same actress, but I feel like I know her from something else too, and I just can't remember what it was, and it's bothering the crap out of me. I have to look it up later. But because her friend is almost like the police officer there, which is kind of interesting. She kind of worked with the police. Mon-El's kind of a police officer himself. But also, because a lot of it's sinking in for Kara, because it's like she's lived her life, and something her mom says, you've lived your life so much as a warrior, it's hard to kind of like just relax and just kind of shut that side of yourself off, you know? Which is interesting considering Mon-El never really had that issue. I mean, it's never come up in conversation, but it's like, I mean, and that's still something we still don't know about either. What about the rest of the Daxamites? We know Mon-El's mom and dad are dead, but it's like, whatever happened to the rest of the Daxamites when they left Earth, you know? Because that conversation's never come up either. Like, oh yeah, this must be hard for Mon-El too, because it's like, oh, he's seen Kara with her parts of her world still alive. But I guess it's like, oh, Mon-El kind of had his moments last season. They weren't great moments because his mom was being super evil and everything like that. But still, there were moments nonetheless, I guess. So it's just kind of interesting to think about. I don't know. It's just a little awkward in my opinion, but I don't know. Like legitimately, I kept thinking like things were a little off about that planet. And in particular, her mom being like saying, she even calls it out. Kara's like, yeah, my sister said almost the exact same thing. I was like, That's weird. I mean, I guess that's the point. Just like, oh, like, well, that's why you love her so much. Because, like, oh yeah, me and your sister were on the same wavelength and everything. Like, so it's obviously good advice. That's kind of what was interpreted as. I interpreted it as like, that's weird. Something's going on with this planet. Are we going to find out that this whole planet situation is fake? That is all part of like, oh, getting inside of Kara's mind. I thought that was going to be it. Her mom's going to say something, slip and say something she's not supposed to know. I thought that was going to be the point. No. Also, because the kid Val kind of gave Kara kind of a stank look, like kind of the stank eye, and I was like, what the hell was that about? I was like, did anyone else notice that? I don't know what that was. It's like, yeah, he's all super cool with Monel, but it's like the moment it was like Kara, it just kind of was like, ugh. I don't know. I was like, what is that about? Nevertheless, it's just kind of interesting to me. I thought something was going to come from that. So, like, I still, like, because there's still some part of my brain that's like, that can't be real. I'd be so surprised. I mean, it's kind of interesting in the grand scheme of things, too, because it doesn't, because it's that thing, because it's like now, knowing a little bit more, expanding my knowledge about Krypton and stuff like that because of the show Krypton, I know that that's a big thing in Brainiac's story, that he's the reason why Krypton explodes. But I guess like Supergirl's going by a different canon about the many different reasons why Krypton explodes. But it's just kind of interesting because like one of the cities he takes, because it actually comes up in Injustice, one of the cities he took in Krypton in the Injustice game, I don't know if it applies in the comic book as well, is Argo City. I just recently found that. I was like, I still like going back, it's just interesting. I was like, oh, I never knew that detail until now. It's like, huh. I think, so it's interesting because the city he tries to take in Krypton is Kandar, so I don't know. It's just maybe he takes multiple cities. I think he only just took one, but nevertheless, it's just kind of an interesting thing. So that's why I'm still kind of like, is this a? I mean, you don't think this is some like trick by? I don't think this. It doesn't seem like this is a Brainiac thing. Which once again, it's just like because they're not going to cross their enemies like that. He's the main antagonist on Krypton. There's no way they're going to cross him over into this. I mean, because you already have Brainy 5 too, so that just I don't know. I don't think they do that exactly. So nevertheless, it was just something interesting kind of floating through my head about that. I still just got that inkling like something's off about that place. Besides just like apparently all these cult people being there too. Because I was like, oh yeah, we do know that Selena's kind of one of them. So it's kind of like, that's kind of weird and awkward. Like you're with the bad guy and you don't even realize it. Because that was something I was thinking about last episode, is like that thing she gave him was like, why would you give them something that would destroy Rain? That was kind of the whole point I was trying to make. So I was like, is it secretly going to make her stronger or something? Was kind of the point. Because one of the ladies, like, oh, the Daughters of the Night, was like, yeah, but the fact of the matter is what you see isn't always what's really happening. So part of me is wondering, because like I'm skipping around, but obviously the whole situation with Sam, like obviously Selena and some of her followers come to Earth. Kovo's waiting for them. I think I've called him Kovar in the past. I think it's Kovo, right? He was waiting and stuff, and so you see Sam's kind of still in Sam. She's reunited with Ruby, and she drops the glass. And part of me is like, okay, so is it the fact is that Rain's not completely gone? Was it kind of all shadows and illusions to kind of put Sam back in place? Was it all meant to be the purpose of like, oh, this will help get, she knew that this, maybe she calculated everything, knew this would lead to Supergirl coming back and wanting to come back and used that opportunity as a chance to strike? Or, like, did it wipe out some of Rain, not all of it? Or are they separated at this point in time, yet Sam is still connected to her on some level, potentially? That she is actually out there, or maybe like because the fortress is being rebuilt at the end of the episode, so maybe it's a situation of like, oh, they're going to bring Rain back, but she's going to be in her own form, which is sucky because we have Mon-El and Supergirl, the only people that can stop Rain or on another planet, so that's going to be a complicated situation. I don't think that, not unless Argo has some like technology that could help them finish that. I mean, that's crazy. Once again, that's a long ass time. Like that whole planet has been bubbling beneath the surface for like what, over a decade. Well over a decade, because Sam had to land like right around. Well, no, because to be fair, it's complicated. Which is hard. It's crazy to think about because, like, I mean, once again, it's one of those things. I don't know if it's been 100% retconned or not. Like, I mean, obviously, like, Kara got here, because of the whole, like, her going into, like, the Phantom Zone with Fort Ross. But it's like, what about Sam? I was like, did that ever come up in my mind? Like, yeah, what about her time schedule? Like, I mean, Kryptonians are supposed to age slower than people anyway, so maybe that just naturally she's been aging slower. or something. I don't know. That was just something that's kind of, now unless just something happened to her ship that made her get here slower too. So either way, whatever the case may be, it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of all plays out next week. I'm curious to figure out like what that really all is. I mean, it looked like there was only like a handful of followers with her, but maybe I don't know. And the whole Colville situation, how many of his followers are still around? It seems like he's the only one, which that douchebag is all still causing problems. So, but another big part of this episode was kind of about the gun situation, because it turns out that the gun, which I had no idea, the DEO specifically gets guns specifically made for their purposes, but it turns out the manufacturer has basically been selling other weapons similar to it to civilians. So it's like you're arming them with military. It turns into a guns debate situation of like, I mean, because it turned out like Lena has a gun which she like uses to defend herself, and it turns to that whole thing between her and Jimmy, where, because obviously you can tell Jimmy's not really big into the whole gun situation. Just because, I mean, I guess it also fits him being guardian and everything. And I love that being a part of the story of being like, yeah, there's no crime or anything. It's like, literally, it's like, how does Supergirl do it? It's like, well, she has hearing. She has super good hearing, so she could hear crime happening. So she could basically go off living her life. It turns into a whole thing. Like, all have to be on the streets looking for crime, you know? Hell, Batman has the advantages of having like a supercomputer being able, plus he has his connections to the computer. Like, well, I guess Wynn kind of fills that role as almost kind of a bat computer situation, so he can keep in touch with all the crime that's kind of going down, how he kind of jumps into action so quickly. That's my understanding of it. But obviously, like, Kryptonians can jump into it quickly, too. Obviously, it's not something that really is that important, but it's kind of interesting, too, because it's like, well, Kara hasn't said anything. It'd just be funny if they had a throwaway line, but the fact of the matter is, obviously, they're just trying to keep it separate, because it's like, no, this is Supergirl, don't worry about Superman thing. But it's like, I think he'd appreciate the knowledge and know, like, oh, yeah, there's actually some of Krypton left. What? Really? That's pretty dope. You know, that type of thing, so I don't know. We'll see. But getting back to the main point of the episode, basically it makes everyone kind of look at things from a different perspective. It makes John look at things from a different perspective, because it's like, you know, Jimmy was like, you don't have to go in there armed with guns because it's just going to turn into a gun battle. And, you know, John was able to talk him down. Basically, this is about a guy who was fired. He basically feels like he lost his entire job life. He sacrificed his marriage because he was working so hard, and he's like, what does he have to pay? Like, what does he have to offer it for it? And it's like nothing, because he lost it all, and he's lashing out because he feels like this is the only way people listen. But it's like, people won't hear you. All they'll know is like you were some crazy dude with a gun. They won't know why you were trying to do what you did. That's not. Motive is important, but it's like all they will focus on is the gun in front of you. That's not how you get people to listen to you. He's like, because John knows, he understands what it's like to be in his situation, to have lost everything. And it's like, basically, you don't need a gun to get someone to hear you. So it kind of makes him take a different perspective, even with the DEO. It's like, we don't need to be arming ourselves with these, like, a whole bunch of high-powered weapons that are just meant to kill. Like, from this point on, they're going non-lethal force, which is definitely interesting. I mean, you're up against some very deadly people, but I guess it's a situation of like, we're not in this to just kill bad guys, because it's like, well, even Supergirl and stuff, it's like, they're all about capturing people. So why are we arming our teams, our, like, you know, agents with weapons that would hurt people, you know, because people could easily get caught up in the crossfire. And it's like, it's something that John kind of always knew, like, you don't always have to, like, use force to kind of, like, deadly force against your enemy. So because obviously Supergirl's an example of that. Like, it's not like she goes out of her way to kill all her enemies. It's like, no, she finds a way to beat them and then, like, lock them up, you know? So I think, but it's more of a situation of Jimmy's like, yeah, sometimes you don't need a gun, you can just use a shield. So I don't know if that's like, obviously they're just going to have different weapons going forward. I mean, because even Alex's weapons, like even the new ones that Wynn hooked her up with, aren't like lethal to my knowledge. I mean, sure, they probably might have a lethal setting to it, but nevertheless, it's definitely going to be interesting going forward, because it does seem like some of the DEO agents are leaving, because it's like, how are we supposed to do our job if we aren't armed to the teeth? Like, you know, it's like, because in their minds, it's probably like, you're putting our lives in danger by not letting us have powerful weaponry, which is like, well, considering everything that you're going up against doesn't always mean that high-powered weapons are going to work anyway. It wouldn't do much against rain anyway, but, you know, that's kind of an example. But we do still see some agents sticking around, so I think the ones who are not all that happy about it seem like people they're going to be leaving, but these are just people who are like, no, we understand. It's going to take some adjusting, but for, you know, Johnny feels like this is the right direction. So it's very interesting. There's also the whole Reach situation with his dad, which is kind of a sad situation. Basically, he's saying that because he's so clear, that means that the disease is nearing its end and he's going to die. And basically, the reach is that basically all their knowledge and wisdom and experience has to be passed on to the next generation. The older generation passes it on to the younger generation. In this case, he's passing it on to his son. Obviously, John wasn't all about it, but now he's kind of accepting it. So the moment he passes it on doesn't mean he's going to die, but it would just mean that John would be accepting it, and he doesn't want to accept it, but it's just the reality of the situation. What's also interesting about this too is that Alex you see her look at adoption photos and stuff. I mean, website, because she's looking at the picture. You could tell like the moment like Sam and Ruby were reunited, she was happy, but you can also tell there was sadness. It was like, you're going to miss having Ruby around. And so that, she's already been thinking about kids, which we've already had that conversation with John about, like, well, the fact is that she's thinking about it so quickly might mean that she might be walking away from especially considering the situation is too, like, she's going to miss Kara, and it's like, because even Wynn's kind of like, yeah, Kara probably won't be coming back as often. Obviously, current circumstances, differing, because obviously that's going to change things. What's also interesting too, there's that whole dream Kara had about Monel and her mom. It's just kind of interesting that she found them again, like the whole walking through the field, they're both back in her life again. So it's like, what was that supposed to represent? Like, what is that? Like, was she getting a vision of the future? I mean, dreams kind of manifest themselves in different shape and form. I mean, I'm sure it's just her psyche, like her subconscious, like pulling at, like, the people she's lost that she wants to get back the most, her mom and Mono, the people she cares about most, so. I mean, obviously that's one way of looking at it, without going too deep. But I feel like there might be something even deeper to that, but maybe not. Which is also interesting too, because Mono ends up telling Kara how he feels, and it looks like Kara hasn't completely moved on either. That there is something there. I was surprised by that because I'm like, oh, is he going to I have no idea what Mono is going to do in the end. Because part of me was like, yeah, I was kind of thinking like, okay, when it's all said and done, like, I don't know, maybe things will change for Kara going forward where she'll be like, no, like, we can't take steps back. We have to step forward. You have a life in the future. Like, maybe it's with Imra, not just because you love her, but also just because the future is where you need it most. You are part of the Legion, and it's not my place to have you stay here with me. Like, I've got my path and you've got yours. Maybe that's what they'll see. Maybe he'll stay. I don't know. I'm very interested to see what they end up doing with all of that. I'm also curious, like, with the whole Selena situation, are they planning on making any more world killers? I mean, Reign's kind of like the perfect storm because she's all three world killers, but it's like, would you even be able to make any more world killers? I mean, things have been shown that you could make world killers because the lady from Koval's one was becoming one as well. Yeah, using that exact material. So it's not completely out the realm of possibility. You get the right ingredients, which I'm sure. Yeah, because the last time we saw, he went to that place where the book was, like, that they were trying to perform the ritual. So he knows. He most like everything was translated already. So he probably just got the translation. He knows exactly how to make more world killers. That could be the point. Like with Sam too, it's just kind of like, oh, we'll inject her with it again and recreate Reign inside of her even stronger than before. Make other world killers. Maybe have Reign devour them and become the ultimate world killer. Who knows? And there's also the thing with Lena I find interesting. For one, Eve is working with them because apparently, like, she's super smart, which is kind of interesting. It's like a little detail, and now that's happening. Part of me goes, what's that supposed to mean? Is she supposed to be like someone like villainous in the comic books or something like that? Eve? Is she like an associate of Lex's in the comic books or something like that? Also, side note, like, did anyone that remembers the animated 90s Superman cartoon, which is, Superman animated series? Who was that lady that worked for Lex? She was kind of like his assistant, but she was also his driver and stuff like that. From my recollection, she was kind of a badass. I don't remember who she was. I don't even remember her name or something like that. But I don't know. I'm curious to see what they do with the whole Eve situation. Like, it feels like they're building, like I said, it was just a small thing. It's like, oh, she's super smart, and so Lena's bringing her on. I feel like is Eve's kind of set up to be kind of like her assistant and kind of potentially the evil route that Lena might potentially go down? I don't know, because Lena was actually supposed to be working on a way to like duplicate that rock because like to make up for the resource that they'd used up to kind of replenish that for the people of Argo City. But it's interesting because she started noticing that there's other properties to it. It's like, oh, there's so much it could do for people. So I'm curious to see what that turns into, because that could be like a situation of like Lena gets her hands on it and maybe it kind of takes a dark turn of like, oh, her trying to, maybe it's something that she takes the L Corp to try and prophesize, like make a profit off of and make. I don't know. I'm curious to see what that is. It seemed like that might be big setup for something. What in particular, I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see, because she's saying like just the properties to it are amazing. So I don't know. Maybe it might hold the answer to exactly what happened with the whole Sam and Rain situation, because the one they had, like the one they got, might be more than what they expected it to be. Like there might be some property changes to it because of the situation that's been under, like being out in space and just being I don't know, like there might be something different from it than the original one that they were trying to get before last episode. So I don't know. We'll ultimately see what goes down in the next episode with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.